Hi everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm back today with making a slider card with the Craftin Desert Divas Ocean Border dies. So I have already used the large wave border in that die set to go ahead and die cut an A2 size blue cardstock panel. I have also used the slider element to go ahead and cut right below where that wave border ends, all the way across the card. And then I've also used the circle in the die set to die cut 2 pieces of white cardstock. Now this is actually going to make up my slider element. So I have these little pop dots. They're actually little slider element bits. They don't have adhesive on them, so I have to use my own. However, if you don't have these, you can use pop dots. You can use little bits of fun foam. Anything like that will work. So what I do is I go ahead and put a little bit of glue. Then I go ahead and put my pop dot right on top of that. And even if you do use a pop dot that has adhesive, you might want to add a little bit more, especially if it's going to go through the mail. Now, once I get that done, I'm going to go ahead and place my die cut element right on top of that. And then I'll go ahead and lock everything into place with this last circle die cut and a little bit of glue. Now, I like to put an acrylic block on top of mine just to kind of give it a little bit of pressure, make sure everything holds really nicely. And then once that's done, that's basically your slider element. You can go ahead and put whatever kind of stamped image, die cut image on top of this and make it slide. I'm going to be using the brand new Shark Jossum die set, or Jossum stamp set, excuse me, and this little shark is from that stamp set. And also, it doesn't have to be with the wave border either. You can use the element, the slider element, with any other die set on grass, in water like it is now, in the air, whatever you might want to do. It would be very cute in the winter with snowbanks too. Now, once I have that all completed, I'm just going to go ahead and put my shark right on top there. If that circle is just a little bit too big, just trim it down on the sides so it will fit your die cut element or your stamped element and you'll be good to go. But once you have that done, you can see I've got my little shark and he slides perfectly. Now you do want to be a little bit careful until the glue sets up. That's why I'm being a little careful here. My glue hasn't completely dried, but he slides perfectly in there. Now, once that was done, I also used another piece of blue cardstock and the smaller wave border in that Ocean Borders die set, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that cardstock with this. Now, I want to go ahead and line it up to where it's right underneath that slider element. This is going to make it to where my little guy won't kind of hang down. He won't slide down. That's a really cute look if you're going for something in the sky. But I don't want him to look like he's going underwater on a surfboard. So I'm actually going to go ahead and make sure that I die cut this right at the right point. I'm using my grid mat behind me. Once I have that placed down, I'll go ahead and put some painter's tape right on top of that and run this through my die cutting machine. Now the great thing about these dies, these ocean border dies, they have stitching not only on the top but on the bottom too. So I'm actually going to save that other wave piece that I cut off and I'll use that on another card later on. So on both of these waves, I'm actually going to add a little bit of Mermaid Lagoon Distressing just to darken up the top of the waves a little bit and add a little dimension. Now on that large border one, you do need to be a little bit careful. It's got some small pieces, and if you use too heavy of a hand, you can wrinkle them a little bit. So just take a little bit extra care. Now on my card base, I'm going to add a little bit of sky with some Salty Ocean Distressing, and I am just using a piece of scrap paper to hold this down. I find if I use my fingers, I get ink everywhere, and then I smear it in some places I don't want it, so I just try to keep my hands out of it as much as possible. I wanted this to be a nice faded sky going from darker to lighter as I move up the card. So I'm just working my way from the bottom towards the top of the card, and I overlay my waves every once in a while just to make sure everything stays in place. Now for my sentiment, I wanted to add a sun, so I actually used the Inside Scallop Circles die set from Craftin Desert Divas. I die cut the smallest one from some red cardstock. I used the negative space to use as a stencil to create my sun, and then around that I went ahead and put the red die cut with some adhesive. Now for the slider to work, you do need to add a little bit of fun foam behind it, not quite as much as I did if you don't want to, but I used 2 layers of fun foam on this just for even more dimension. And I'm also going to put some fun foam on the back of that smaller wave just to bump it up a little bit and add more dimension. This is definitely not a card that I can probably put through the mail, but it is one I can hand deliver. I don't really use a lot of dimension on my cards. I mostly try to keep them clean and simple. So sometimes when I use dimension and I start adding more and more, I go a little crazy, but that's okay. Every once in a while doesn't hurt anything. So once I had my double-sided adhesive on the back of that, I went ahead and lined that up with the bottom of the card and just popped that right into place. And again, that is going to allow it so my little shark guy just goes straight across the wave. He doesn't fall down and look like he's going underwater. Once I had that all completed, I went ahead and popped that red die cut around my stenciled in sun. And then on my sentiment, I went ahead and used the circle die set, the stitched in circles dies from Craftin Desert Divas, to die cut that sentiment out, and I just popped that up with some more fun foam right in the middle of that yellow sponge circle. Now I did use the Scene Builders die set to die cut some clouds and birds, black birds, and I'm going to add those as well. Some I'm going to put on, one I'll put on the wave and on the sentiment, and the other one just in the sky. The clouds, for added texture, I did die cut those from some white felt, just for a little bit of something different. But once I had all of those glued down, that finished off the card for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and a look at how to create this slider element from the Craftin Desert Divas Ocean Border dies. As always, I'm going to leave you with a few pictures of the finished card. On the left side of your screen, you're going to see a few different links you can click on. The top will take you to a video you might enjoy watching next. The bottom left will take you to the supply list for this card, and the bottom right will subscribe you to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!